welcome to the ES Africa studio broadcasting from Inlet Africa. Today I'm speaking with Bobby Harris, who is the founder and CEO of Smart Water, Smart City. Thank you for joining me again in the studio.
It's my pleasure, always.
So, Bobby, let's start off with what is the key definition of a smart city, and does it always have to have an aspect of technology?
You know, that's a really good question. I do get asked that quite a lot because there's always a different definition. And I think you can come about the smart city discussion from a lot of different places, whether it's obviously the energy grid, the smart renewables, solar, wind, hydro, also electric vehicles. But we cannot leave out water. And so I always talk about the importance of water in a smart city discussion or scenario. But the key piece, honestly, whether you start with the electric grid or you start with medicine or you start with education, the smart piece of it is the connectivity. So having a telecommunications infrastructure, a network that can connect the devices, that can give you the insights, that's the critical piece of a smart city definition, certainly.
Right, so it is all about the data and being able to analyze it.
Analyzing the data, looking for those trends, looking for those deficiencies, absolutely. And being more efficient and more renewable and more reliable. That reliability is critical, that resiliency, no matter what it is, those communication aspects are what's going to allow you to not only do predictive maintenance, but to know where deficiencies lie and then address those.
Right, right. So let's talk about city expansion and what are the pitfalls that could happen in that planning?
You know, that is important because we all want to grow. We all want to attract new business and new residents. But the infrastructure of a city is critical. You can't outgrow your infrastructure. Many mayors that I talk with, if they're really looking at the future of their city, they realize that they need to make sure that their infrastructure can support it. And when I say infrastructure, it's not just streets and housing or government services. It's also water and sewer and wastewater. Can that expand? Have you put in the right networks there in order to attract that new business? Because many businesses require a certain level of water quality. In order to add those new neighborhoods, you don't want to stress a city by adding more residents to it than its infrastructure can hold. So it takes a moment. You really need to do an analysis. You really need to say, where can we grow? What makes a logical progression, an evolution of our city? And not just grow for the sake of growth. Be smart about it, certainly. Yeah. And that's really, I think sometimes you see transportation can be a good visual of how a city perhaps didn't plan properly for growth with some new gridlocks that are never good. So if you take that visual of a highway or superhighway, now that has complete backlock, people are stuck, you can't go forward. If you think about that in the intangible, the things you can't see, your water networks, your fiber, or your being able to connect your devices for education or for communications for the residents to communicate. If you haven't built that out properly, it will jam up just like your roads did. So be positive and proactive in your planning.
Right. So just again on city planning, you consider water, energy, transportation, but what other aspects are really important? And I know you've mentioned connectivity.
Connectivity is critical. If we learned anything in the last 2 years, it's that there is a huge digital divide. Many of our residents do not have access to simple connectivity on their devices. So when we sent everyone home and we said shelter in place, we said you can't go to school, we said you can't do things. Now you cut off a whole group of people that didn't even have the basic connectivity for their devices, so they weren't even able to communicate or get help or get education. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we need to make sure we continue to focus on. And actually a lot of the utilities and the cities that have put in smart infrastructure have excess capacity in their broadband. Now they can, if they choose to, become a service provider. So it's a whole new line of business for a city to say, we'll connect you we'll offer this as another utility service, is connectivity. And I think some utilities around the world are really looking at that because they've built out their infrastructure and built to capacity. So they have a lot of broadband. And that extra, you could call it dark fiber, or if it's fiber, or excess capacity in broadband, now they can have a whole nother business line that says, okay, we'll sell it to the residents that already buy our utility services. Now they can buy their broadband from us too. I think that's a positive thing to come out of all of this also.
I just want to ask you one last question, and it touches on what you spoke about earlier about the quality of the water. We don't really think about that. We think about quantity. Do we have available water? But we don't think about that in terms of what is the quality of it.
And that is absolutely critical. You know, a lot of people will say, oh, we have plenty of water in our city. We don't need to do a smart water network. Well, you may have plenty, but what's the quality of it? What about if a bad person or company dumps something bad in your water supply? Will you know about it before someone gets sick? Put in the network, put in the sensors for the water quality. That is critical. It's not a big dollar spend, but it is critical to the future. It's also critical to attracting those new businesses. If you think of some of the high-tech manufacturing that requires a quality of water level that's beyond other things, in order to attract that water quality number is going to be important. So know what your quality is, not just for your residents, but also for new growth, certainly.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Bobby.
Pleasure. It's my pleasure always, Nicolette. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.